Hey guys, welcome or welcome back to Crafts Go Bloom. My name is Krista and today we're going to be walking through the tutorial on how to make this no-sew crochet duck. If you'd like to have a hard copy of the PDF to follow along with, I will have that linked down below. The way this video works is that the pattern will be written across the top of the screen here, and I will talk you through all of the terms in the pattern, and then I'm going to physically show you how all of them are done. If I am going too fast for you, just go ahead and hit pause and meet me back when you've finished that round. So let's take a look at our supplies for today. First up, we've got the different yarns. Now this bird only uses yellow and orange, and I'm going to be using Bernat Blanket Brights in the color Carrot Orange, and I'll be using Bernat Baby Blanket in the color Pale Marigold. Some other supplies you're going to need today are a sharp pair of scissors. Really, any scissors will do, they don't need to be special scissors. A tapestry needle, and that's a thick needle that doesn't bend and has a large eye to put your yarn through and a dull tip. I have a stitch marker here. This is just one example of a stitch marker. It sort of acts as a safety pin, but we want to use something that's plastic that we can be crocheting around and not worrying about if it's sharp on the end. And this will mark where we're at in the pattern. I also have safety eyes here. The eye sticks out the front of the project, the point goes through it, and then you use these little plastic washers on the back to snap it in place. And for today's project, I'm going to be using 12mm eyes. Safety eyes are not okay for any child who is still putting toys in their mouth. If a child is still putting toys in their mouth, use yarn for the eyes. Okay, back to the video. And I'm going to be using my size 6 or J crochet hook today. Really, you need to use whatever crochet hook works with your tension so that you're not seeing any of the stuffing sticking out through your stitches. You want to have tight stitches. And I've also made this pattern before in a worsted weight yarn, and I've made it in Big Twist Posh. And you can use either of those also, but you're going to want to change your hook size depending on what yarn you're using. And our last supply is stuffing. I'll insert a picture of what my big box looks like. We'll need way more than this. This is just an example of it. The first thing we're going to do in this pattern is make the feet so that when we get that far on the bird, we're able to attach those, and I'll show you that when we get there. So I'm going to be starting with my orange color. And remember, we need to make 2 of these. So I'm going to show you how to make one, and then you'll need to pause and rewatch that to make a second foot. So we're going to start with a slip stitch, and for a slip stitch, I just wrap the yarn around 2 fingers and push that through, tighten that down. And we are going to chain 5. And when you chain, you're just yarning over and pulling it through a loop. So we've got 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do a slip stitch. A slip stitch is where you just insert your hook, yarn over, and you pull it through all of those loops. There's only 2 of them, but you pull it through everything you've got. So we do 1 slip stitch, and then we're going to do a second one. And that's creating what we're going to call like a base area there, and the first talon. So now we're going to chain 2. 1 and 2, and then we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to start in the second chain from the hook. We're going to slip stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch again in that same area that we've already gone into. And now we've got that middle talon. And then we're going to repeat that whole thing again. So we've got chaining 2, and then we're going to slip stitch 2, and then we've got 3 talons, and you should still have 2 stitches left, and you're going to slip stitch up the side of those, and that's creating our little leg. And then I'm going to chain 1 just to finish off, and I'm going to cut a tail that matches my first tail, because we're going to be using these to tie the foot inside the bird. And go ahead and pull that yarn out. We're going to be using these tails to tie the foot inside the bird and make a few knots. So we need something long enough to make a few knots. Also, we want to take a look at the top while we still know what the top is if you've never examined stitches like this. And the bottom Just to remember which side needs to be facing up when we get there. They're a little more flat on the top. So let's get that second one done. So I'm going to speed up and make this second one much quicker. Now that I have both feet made, I'm going to push those off to the side until we need those later. We're not quite done with the orange yet though, because we're going to need to make the beak, so keep that handy. And we're going to be starting off from the top of the bird and working our way down. So we need to have that yellow color. And we're going to be starting with a magic ring. If you've never made a magic ring before, the way I do it is to lay the yarn across my hand and grab it with my thumb. I'm going to wrap it around the back of those 3 fingers, not too tight. And then pinch that X that's made right there with my thumb, go across the back of my hand again, and grab it with my pinky. Then I'm going to take my hook and go under the first loop, grab the second one, pull it out and twist, and then I'm going to grab the yarn that's over here and I'm going to pull that through, and that is our magic ring. So I'm going to take that out and show you one more time. We're going to lay it across our hand and grab it with your thumb, across the back of your fingers and around until it makes an X, and pinch that with your thumb. Then go across the back of all 4 fingers, grab it with your pinky. Now take your hook and go under the first loop, grab the second one, pull it out, and then twist it. And then grab a hold of that yarn that's over there that you're holding with your pinky, and you're really just pulling it through, but I find it's a lot simpler for me to also twist my hand at the same time. So we've got our magic ring. For round 1, we're going to single crochet 7 into this magic ring. And the way you do that is by inserting your hook, yarning over and pulling up that loop, yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. So you're going to insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. And we're going to keep doing that until we have 7. Got 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we want to pull on the tail of our magic ring, being careful that we don't pull too tightly because you can snap your yarn. I hold on to my stitches like this, leaving my hook in there, but when I was newer to this, it was too difficult to figure that out. So I would pull out the working yarn and then just focus on holding these stitches. So either way is fine. And then you're just going to pull that tight until there's not a hole in the center. We want it tight, but like I said, don't pull too hard. You definitely can snap your yarn. And then I put my stitch marker in the last stitch of the round. That way when we're going around again, I know which one is my last one and where I'm stopping. So get that all tightened down. For round 2, we're going to increase 7 times for a total of 14 stitches. And an increase is just doing 2 single crochets into the same space. So we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So just the same as the single crochets we did before, except now we're going to do 2 in that same space. We've got 1, 2, 3, back in the same space for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then I'm going to take out my stitch marker for a second and do stitches 13 and 14, and then remember to put the stitch marker back in. I never crochet over it because it always leaves just a little bit of extra, it like takes up a little bit of extra space, and then it makes my stitches look just a little bit off. For round 3, we're going to increase and then single crochet 1. We're going to repeat that pattern 7 times for a total of 21 stitches. So first we're going to do an increase. Got 1, 2, and then we're going to move over and just do 1 single crochet in that space. So that's 3. We're going to repeat that. 4 and 5 are going to go into the same space, and then 6 is on its own. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. For rounds 4, 5, and 6, we're going to single crochet 21, going around for a total of 21 stitches. So you're going to do that for all 3 rounds. For round 4, you're going to do 21. Round 5, you're going to do 21. Round 6, you're going to do 21 stitches. So I will show you what that looks like on this round, on round 4. And then I'm going to finish rounds 5 and 6 off camera. And you do the same. Go ahead and pause if you need to and finish round 6, and then we'll meet back here for round 7. And my project is starting to turn into a little cup or a bowl. And so when I get to the end of that, I'll show you what I do with that. And stitch 21. Now I just flip this like that. Let's get my stitch marker back in there so I don't forget. And the tail is always on the inside when you're making an amigurumi like this, and you're always crocheting around the outside for this pattern. So remember, do 2 more rounds, round 5 and round 6, with 21 single crochets in them, and then I will show you what mine looks like when I'm finished with that. So I've finished round 6, and we're starting to get the top of the head. You can see we're making that shape right there. And we are going to move on to round 7. Round 7, if you're a beginner, might look like a paragraph that's quite confusing, but I'm going to leave it up on the screen here for a second without moving on in the pattern, and I will break this down step by step as we're going through it. We only need one part of the instruction at a time. So the first thing it says is that we're going to single crochet 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now on that 10th one, we're going to color change. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And then I'm going to get the orange, and I'm going to yarn over with the orange. And I like to leave a good sized tail because we're going to be using that in a little bit. And you're going to pull that through. Now I'm going to put down the orange tail and leave that out of my way on purpose. We're going to use that later. And I'm going to crochet over the yellow working yarn. So I'm just going to leave that in the front, and it'll be inside of our stitch. And we are going to half double crochet, and then half double crochet all into the front loops only of the next stitch. So when you're inserting your hook, you've got 2 loops on there. If you look closely, it's a V, and we're going to go into the front loop only. So first we need to make a half double crochet. So we're going to do that by yarning over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. And then we're going to do a double crochet, and remember we're going into the exact same space. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you're going to yarn over and only pull through 2, and then yarn over and pull through the last 2. And then we have 1 more half double. So you're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that same front loop only, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, whoops, you will yarn over and pull through all 3, but you need to switch back to your yellow. So yarn over and pull through all 3 with the yellow. And then we're going to do 10 more single crochets in yellow to finish out the round. So just keep that orange hanging on there for a minute, and we will get around to the next round and then we'll take care of that. So I've got 5, 6. Now if your orange is getting in your way like that, you can just twist everything around so that it ends up on the bottom again. 7, 8, 9, and 10. For round 8, we're going to start by single crocheting 10 in the yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we're going to stay with the yellow this entire round. We're not changing to the orange anymore. But for this 11th stitch, we're going to go back behind the beak and find that back loop only that we didn't go into in the last round. And we're going to hook into that and do 1 single crochet. Now make sure that the orange yarn is down and out of your way and you're crocheting over it, and you don't accidentally leave it up and hanging out to the front of its mouth. So we have that 1 stitch behind the beak, and then we have 10 more to finish out the round. 10 more single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to pull out that working yarn for a minute while we deal with those orange tails. Let's see what we've got in here. We can stuff that yellow one in there. That's going to stay there. And we're looking at these 2 orange tails. So go ahead and cut your orange working yarn. We're actually totally done with the orange for the rest of the pattern now. And if you did this how I described with the yarning over and crocheting over things, you're going to have this stitch in between these 2 orange tails, and you can just go ahead and tie those tightly into a couple of knots. And then we don't need to weave those in to make sure that anything stays. And you can stuff those in there. And since we're taking a break, let's go ahead and add our eyes. And the eyes are added between rounds 6 and 7, about 4 stitches apart. So let's count down. If you're new to this, the center ring there, that's round 1. We're going to go round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we want to put our eyes in between 6 and 7. And I don't worry too much about them being exactly 4 stitches apart. I just want to make sure that they're centered on the beak. Also, a trick is you can line these up. If you've already made a pattern before and you want to make it look exactly like the old one, you can line up these eyes and see that they look like they're the same width apart and everything, and that you're going to get the same result. So I'm just going to hold this with my thumb, flip it inside out, being careful not to push the entire eye through because we want to catch some of that yarn. Then we're going to take this little washer and just slide that down until it clicks. And then it catches on those little ridges right there. And we'll get the next one. And then those eyes are sunk down in there, and we can move on. For round 9, you're just going to single crochet 21 for a total of 21 stitches. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, For round 10, we're going to have another little paragraph of instructions here, but we'll just keep working on it like we've been doing. So we're going to start by single crocheting 1. And I'll point out what we're doing here in round 10 is starting to make this point of the tail feathers. So we single crochet 1, and now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. You're going to skip that first stitch on your hook and do 2 single crochets going back down the chain. So 1 single crochet in each chain that's left. Then you're going to do another single crochet in the same space that you already started. We're going to put a second one in there. And then we're just going to do 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to be making the first wing. So we're going to do 5 double crochets, all in the next stitch and all in the front loop only. So if you remember, for a double crochet, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, remember in the front loop only, yarn over, pull up a loop, then you're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that was 1 double crochet. And we're going to be doing 5 into this same space. So you yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we've got 3, 4, and 5. And after you're finished with that, we're going to do 9 single crochets across the front. And you want to make sure that your double crochets haven't laid down and covered up a stitch. So make sure they're all in one, and then you're moving on to the next stitch right next to it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we're going to make the second wing. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go in the front loops only, and we're going to do 5 double crochets. So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2 to make a double crochet. 3, 4, and 5. Now for round 10, we're actually going to be taking our stitch marker out because we're going to move where it's placed at the end. And the next thing we're going to do is 8 single crochets. So the first 5 are just normal, making sure you move those double crochets out of the way, move that wing over and find the next stitch. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the 6th single crochet is going to come across. You might have a little bit of a gap in here. So we're going to come across and just stick it over there, kind of making up a little bit of a space where it's going to go. And then we're going to go up the back of the chain that we made for 7 and 8. And that's our new ending stitch. You should have 36 stitches in this round, and that's where you're going to put your stitch marker. For round 11, we're going to start off with 8 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8. And now we're not going to be single crocheting, we're not going to be crocheting at all in the ends of that wing. So the next one, just like with the beak, you're going to go under the wing and find that stitch where we left the back loop only. You're going to do 1 single crochet in there, and then make sure you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets and find that very next single crochet, and you're going to do 9 across the front. And that's taking our wing from something kind of flat and turning it into this little cupped wing. So we've got 9 single crochets across the front. I did 1 right there next to the wing. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we need to be careful of the exact same things, that you're not going into any of those double crochets. You find the back loop only stitch from the last round, do 1 single crochet in there, and then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets. Make sure you skip over those and go to the next one. And we're going to do 8 single crochets to end the round. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then that 8th one. And you're going to have a total of 27 stitches at the end of that round. The reason those numbers are changing is because in the last round we counted the wings, and in this round we don't count them anymore. For rounds 12 and 13, you're just going to single crochet 27 for a total of 27 stitches. Nothing too fancy about these 2 rounds, we're just making him a little bit taller. And this time around, when you're going under the wing, you're not doing any special stitches. You just need to make sure that you are looking under there and finding that one under the wing, and don't forget about it. Getting under that wing again, making sure I'm finding the next stitch right after that. And then we've got 27. And we're going to do the exact same thing for round 13, just 27 single crochets around for a total of 27 stitches. Now, if you're enjoying this tutorial, I have dozens more like it over on my channel, so make sure that you go check those out if that's something you're interested in. And some of them are a little quicker paced than this video, some of them are a little bit slower. But I have a bunch more no-sew amigurumis. There's no sewing in any of my patterns as of right now. I have similar birds to this one though in a whole series. I have a flamingo, a chicken, a mallard, a turkey, quite a few different things. And there are PDFs of all of those available as well. Five, 26, and 27. And then see, we're starting to make him just a little bit taller, give him more of a body down here. For round 14, we're going to start by doing 4 invisible decreases. And the way I do an invisible decrease is by going in the front loops only of the next 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2. And we just turn 2 stitches into 1. So that was 1 invisible decrease, 2, remember you're going to go in the front loops only of the next 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through those, yarn over and pull through those. And now we've got 3, and 4. Next, we're going to single crochet 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to invisible decrease 3. Make sure you go through the front loops only. 1. And by going through the front loops only, that's helping you not have any gaps where we can see through the yarn. 2, 3. Now we're going to single crochet 4. Make sure after you do an invisible decrease, make sure that you are going over to the next stitch that you have not gone in at all yet. Sometimes after an invisible decrease, you can end up going into the same stitch again. And then we're going to end it with 3 invisible decreases. 1, 2, and the third one. And at the end of the round, you should have 17 stitches now. And we're going to pull out our working yarn. It is time to add the feet. Looking pretty cute. We are going to add the feet between rounds 13 and 14. And we just finished round 14, so that's this one right down here, and this one's 13. So we want to stick them in between those. And the way I'm going to find out where to stick them is by just holding out my crochet hook to the eyes and then going straight down from the eyes as straight as I can. And I'm going to just put my hook through, yarn over, and pull that through. Because remember, I don't enjoy sewing. So I'm looking for any way to avoid sewing anything on. So we're going to pull those through. I'm not going to tie them off just yet because I want to put both feet in and make sure that everything is looking straight before we do that. So we're going to go down from the eye. Make sure nothing looks crooked already. There's one side. And then let's get the other one. I can't tell if that's straight until they're both on, so let's check that out. I'm also trying to sort of like poof out the body even though we don't have any stuffing in it yet because I want to make sure everything looks right. Yeah, I think this foot is too close. I think it's too close to the beak. So his left foot needs to go over one stitch. So you're not going to get these perfect every time. And that's okay. It only takes a couple of seconds to move that over. All right, let's check that out. Okay, that's looking much better. So we're going to flip this over and tie these two tails together and these two tails together. Just don't tie one foot to the other foot or it's going to pull the whole front of your bird together and it's going to look a little strange. And I tie these very tightly, all of them. Then I just stuff my tails in there. And I like this method for figuring out how to get them straight and get them exactly where I want them without having to do any sewing. Because when I do sewing, oftentimes I get things crooked or slightly in the wrong spot. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add my stuffing, but we're still creating a little bit down here at the end. So I'm going to add stuffing to about here and then stop. That's about round 12 because the tail won't close yet. We still have quite an opening, and so your stuffing isn't actually going to stay in there. It's going to pop out and you're going to be like crocheting it in your stitches. So I just stuff as much as I can right now, and then we'll still have a hole at the end to be able to add more. When I'm adding stuffing, I always like to add how much I think feels right and then add a little bit extra because as kids play with these, they end up getting squished and then they can kind of end up looking a little flat. For round 15, we're going to invisible decrease 8 times and then single crochet 1 for a total of 9 stitches. Now this is why I don't like to add stuffing all the way up, because it can get a little bit finicky to hold on to this thing at the very end. And also I don't want to be sticking my hook down into a bunch of stuffing. It can get crocheted into your plushies if you're not careful. But I am still sticking my hand in there and pushing the stuffing down out of my way before I start doing a stitch. You want to make sure you're not going into any stitches that you've already gone into, and that you're actually moving over past those invisible decreases. I'm going to move my stitch marker out of my way because I know I only have one more invisible decrease and then one single crochet and I'll be done. And when I get near the end here and there's not that much of a hole left on the bottom, that stitch marker can really get in the way. All right, and then I'm going to chain 1 to finish off because we're done, and I'm going to cut a long tail in the yellow. And I'm going to pull that out. Now see, I don't really have any stuffing in my tail, but now we've created a space to be able to keep that in there. And make sure that you don't stuff your yarn tail in there because we still need to close this up. Also, as you're stuffing, you want to make sure that the eyes haven't twisted at all. There's that back sticking in there, and sometimes the stuffing can push it around, and then when you just look at the front of your project, the eyes seem a little bit off. So I am happy with that amount of stuffing. I'm going to get my tapestry needle, thread that yarn on there, and we're going to go through the front loops only of that last round. So we worked earlier in the back loops only, and now we're going to be working in the front loops only. And as I'm going around, I'm going to be pulling up a loop, well, pulling through a loop, and I'm going to cinch it down just a little bit every single time, because sometimes it can cause your yarn to break if you go ahead and go through every single loop before you do any kind of cinching it closed. And then I usually go through one more just to really give it a closed up look. And then I like to skirt along the inside of my project with my needle, come out over here on the side, and weave through those single crochets that we've done. And I usually just start on one side of the project and go to the other. And we're just trying to hide that tail in there. And I found that this helps a lot if the plushie needs to go through the wash at all to keep it from coming out. Also, if you have a kid with tiny little fingers, sometimes they'll dig around in there and find that end. Then we're going to cut a tail. Don't cut so close that you cut your actual project. And in under an hour, we have finished a no-sew crochet duck, guys. You guys did a really great job. I love to see your finished products. If you ever want to let me know about them or share them, I'm over on Instagram, and it would be awesome to see your finished products. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, what did you think of this video, and what kind of tutorials would you like to see in the future? And I will see you in the next one. Bye!